Enlightenment course and what's the point of all of this. So each session will include opening and closing prayers, because in this class we do prayers, and a talk, a guided meditation, and if there's an opportunity at the end for questions. So the course will naturally draw extensively on this magnificent reference book, Path to Enlightenment in Tibetan Buddhism, by the great Tibetan spiritual guide and teacher, Venerable Geshe Acharya Thubten Loden, who is just behind me, for those of anybody who might not know. And Geshe Loden is from the same lineage of teachers as His Holiness the Dalai Lama, extraordinarily peaceful lineage, and other famous Tibetan Buddhist teachers. So Geshe Loden lived in Australia from 1976 through to his passing at 88 in 2011, and he established 4 temples. He built, 4 centres, built 2 temples. He wrote 9 authoritative books and taught many students here in Australia and before then in India, and was very beloved and revered by his students. So I was very fortunate to be one of his students, and not long, a few years before he passed away, I took ordination with several others, which is why I'm in the robes. So we begin each session with prayers, each session of the Path to Enlightenment course with some prayers, and they're really very useful because they're like poetic reminders that we can repeat over and over, emphasising the benefits of the qualities that we need to reach an enlightened or a more awakened state, as exemplified by the Buddha and the Buddha's teachings, which are known as Dharma. And those who have reached a considerable way on the path to enlightenment, such who are known as Sangha, not necessarily monks and nuns. Sangha is people who've reached a certain stage on the path, depending on the realisations and the development of their mind. So as we go through this course, the meaning of the prayers will become clearer and clearer step by step, and they're really like little capsules of mind training for us. So we might want to say some of the prayers each day, and be really useful. If you have the inclination and the capacity, then memorising them is even better, as the meaning of the prayers will become more succinct and clear to you. So we'll also begin each of these sessions with a stabilization meditation, which is to clear our mind and bring us into the present, and then we'll explore the day's topic. And today's topic is, what is happiness and why is it important? And then we'll conclude the session with a visualization meditation, begin with a little bit more stabilization and then do a visualization. So over the 6 weeks of this overview course, and as the year progresses, then there are many, many different wonderful meditations within Tibetan Buddhism, and we'll be able to try some of those. So before we do the prayers, there's a light offering today by Jill Stokes, and this is following the passing of her dear Aunt Ruth. And so Jill has written some words. May Ruth be guided through the Bardo state, and may she quickly attain enlightenment for the benefit of all living beings. May she at least have a higher rebirth with access to the Dharma and all good conditions, so that she quickly attains enlightenment. So if we can all just reflect on Jill's words and the passing of Aunt Ruth. So then if we turn to page 19 of the prayer book. And so we'll do the three prayers on this page. We'll do the first prayer in English. Then the second two prayers we'll do in Tibetan and English. Then after we finish 19, we'll move to the page 23 to do the English. And then we'll do the prayer, that's the prayer of the lineage gurus, and then we'll do the Great Treasury of Excellence prayer on page 27. So, some people don't have prayers. Do you want? Pardon? Oh, they're up there on the screen. Okay, thank you. So if you're in the temple, they're here on the screen, and I believe online it's the same. Is that right? Thank you. So, teacher, Bhagawan, Tathagata, Arhat, perfectly pure and complete Buddha, all-knowing, having poise, Sagata, apprehender of the world, navigator of beings to be subdued, incomparable, teacher of gods and humans, to the Buddha, the Bhagawan, the glorious conqueror Shakyamuni, we prostrate, make offerings, and go for refuge. So the refuge and bodhicitta prayer we do once in Tibetan and twice in English. Sangye chodang zoki chonam la jang chu barudani kyap suchi dagi jinzo pezo namji drola panji sange drupajo. To the Buddha, Dhamma and Sangha, I go for refuge until becoming enlightened. Through the merit of my generosity and so on, may I achieve Buddhahood to benefit all beings. Buddha, Dhamma and Sangha, I go for refuge until becoming enlightened. Through the merit of my generosity and so on, may I achieve Buddhahood to benefit all beings. So with the short mandala offering, for anyone who's not aware, there is a mudra that goes with that. And if you'd like me to show anyone afterwards, I'm happy to do that. Zaji Poke Jojin Meto Tram Rira Ling Jini Gyan Pari Sangye Jindu Mingde Ulwaji Drukun Nam Dag Jinla Chopajo. So this ground, anointed with perfume and strewn with flowers, Mount Meru, the four continents, adorned with sun and moon, imagined as a Buddha land and offered thus, may all beings enjoy such pure lands. So in the centre of the mudra we have Mount Meru, and as with the fingers spread out like this, we have the four continents. So that's what the mudra means, and this is an offering to all the Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas. Okay. Then we move to page 23, for those who have a prayer book, Prayer of the Lineage Gurus. Body born from a million magnificent, excellent virtues, speech fulfilling the hopes of infinite beings, a mind that sees all objects of knowledge precisely, I bow my head to the chief among the Shakyas, supreme sons of the incomparable teacher, carrying the load of all the conqueror's deeds, by the emanations appearing in countless realms. I prostrate to Maitreya and Manjushri. The mother of conquerors is difficult to fathom. The precise thought is in commentaries written by Jambudvipa's ornaments, Nagarjuna and Asanga. I prostrate at the feet of those most renowned in the three realms. From these two great chariots come the excellent lineages of the paths of profound view and vast deeds, their essential points gathered thoroughly and without fault. Prostration to the Lamb holding this treasury of instruction, giving explanation through compassion by seeing precisely and completely the essential points of all paths of Sutra and Tantra, holder of the Conqueror's entire holy Dhamma, prostrations to the glorious Losang Drakpan. I, seeing all of the infinite teachings, supreme way of crossing for those entering the journey to liberation, moved by compassion to deeds skilled in method, prostrations to the spiritual masters who make everything clear. Then we turn to the great treasury of excellence, which is, as it says in the brackets, the prayer of the path to enlightenment. So this prayer, we'll talk about it later in the course and explain it, is a summary of the whole of this book, The Graduated Path to Enlightenment. So it's a good prayer to say every day if you feel so inclined, because it gives us that kind of neat summary and neat overview. So the kind master is the basis of all qualities, and proper alliance is the root of the path. By seeing this excellence and through much striving, bestow blessings to be devoted with great respect. This gentle support of freedom, obtained this one time, is most difficult to achieve. Knowing its great value gives rise to a mind seizing its essence constantly day and night. Bestow blessings to generate this continuum unceasingly. It is like a bubble in water, this constantly moving body and life. Thus remember the swift collapse of death, beyond death like body and shadow. White and black karmic results follow after. By gaining firm certainty in this, the mass of faults, subtle and very subtle, are abandoned, and the accomplishment of all virtuous collections completed. Bestow blessings to ever retain conscientiousness. The qualities of samsara are unfit to be trusted, the door to all suffering. Do not be content with these enjoyments. By knowing its defects, bestow blessings to develop a great aspiration for the bliss of liberation. By that pure thought, great conscientiousness is drawn forth, and mindfulness and awareness of the individual liberation, the root of the teachings, bestow blessings to make this the essential practice. Just as I myself have fallen to samsara's ocean, all living beings as mother are also like that. By seeing the responsibility for the liberation of beings, bestow blessings to be trained in supreme bodhicitta. However, by merely generating the mind, if not acquainted with the three aspects of ethics, enlightenment will not be attained. By seeing this excellence, bestow blessings to train with strong effort in the vows of conqueror sons, pacifying distraction toward perverse objects by way of proper analysis of the perfect meaning. Bestow blessings to swiftly and continuously generate the path related to the union of calm abiding and special insight. Thus, becoming a vessel trained in the common paths, enter the Vajrayana, supreme evolution of all vehicles. Bestow blessings to engage the easy path itself, that sacred way of crossing for fortunate beings. The base of practice for the two aspects of attainment is when guarding the pure vows of commitment is found to be genuine and certain. Bestow blessings to protect them even at risk of life. Then, by understanding properly the important points, which are the essence of the two stages of the Tantra classes, bestow blessings to practice according to these holy teachings, with continuous effort in the supreme four-session yoga. Like that, may the spiritual friend revealing the gentle path and the friends of proper practice stand firm. Bestow blessings to quickly pacify the masses of outer and inner hindrances. In all rebirths may I never be parted from perfect gurus and the enjoyment of the glorious Dhamma. By utterly completing all qualities, paths and grounds, may I quickly achieve the state of Vajradhara. So we'll now begin with a short meditation to settle the mind. So if we get comfortable, sitting on a chair is fine, have a straight back, otherwise you might get sleepy. If you're on the floor, then there's no need for a lotus position, easy crossed legs. The main thing is to try and keep our back straight. So we take a deep breath, we raise our shoulders and let them relax with a sigh, a slight sigh, and we let the body soften and relax. So we can either close our eyes or half close our eyes, whichever's more comfortable, and bend our head slightly forward and place the tongue behind the front teeth to prevent the build-up of saliva. Rest our hands in the lap, the right hand on the top of the other hand and the tips of the thumbs touching. So before commencing our meditation and before commencing practice, it's really a great idea if we can establish and spend the time to establish a positive motivation for doing that. So we generate the wish to use the positive mental qualities we develop in this session to benefit ourselves and all others. It strengthens our meditation, creates a positive imprint in our mind, and makes the whole exercise more worthwhile. So having established a good motivation based on love and compassion, kindness, caring, wishing for the well-being of others, we choose a place to focus our concentration on the breath. Some people prefer to watch the rising and falling of the diaphragm or the upper chest. Some prefer to watch the passage of the breath through the nostrils. So choose whichever one is the most comfortable for you. And then focus on the rising and falling or the in and out of the breath. So for this short period, we discard all other thoughts that we might be having. Bring our mind clearly to the present moment. Anything that might have happened this morning, on our way here, plans for tonight or the week ahead, any sounds or smells, sensations in the body. Just gently bring our mind to the breath. This might even be challenging in these COVID times with so much happening. But even if our mind is still busy, just the wish and the effort to create more peace and focus, more spaciousness will benefit, because we are creating the imprint, we're creating a new habit. Meditation is a learned skill. It's like cooking or soccer or the work that we do. It's a skill that's learned. The more it is practiced, the more it is done, the stronger the imprint. Meditation is just the same. All sounds, all tingles, all sorts of sense awarenesses, they're all distractions for this very precious short time that we have to withdraw and settle, practice, focusing on the breath. So we can use a very small part of our mind to be like the guard. And the guard can label those things a distraction. And then we can let them go and return our full concentration to the breath. We wish we can increase our focus by thinking, I am breathing in, I am breathing out, I am breathing in, I am breathing out. Focus fully on this one object. This special time is very precious. It's just for ourselves. To clear the mind and regain real presence, focus and equilibrium. Time to reset and get everything working well again. Create spaciousness. To be completely present in this temple or in our home. Our present activity is single-minded, serving without any mental comment or any remonstration. If we find our mind wandering, we just bring it back gently without comment. Be simple and uncontrived. Our aim is to become completely still. That stillness becomes like an unruffled lake, completely tranquil, not even disturbed by the slightest breeze, or the ripple of leaves, or birds landing. The mind's focus and concentration are not disturbed by other thoughts, memories of past events or projections. Still like the glass-like lake. So when you're ready, if you'd like to release your concentration. So the name of the first 6 weeks of this Path to Enlightenment course is, it's an overview of the path, is Finding Happiness from Within. So I've named it this way because one of the core and most important features of Tibetan Buddhism is that we are fully able and capable to find greater happiness regardless of our circumstances. So whether we're young or older, whatever our economic background, whether we're overflowing with wealth or whether we are facing very difficult economic circumstances, or we're experiencing great good fortune or an ongoing series of challenges in life, whatever culture we come from, whether we're married with children or single, we're working, a student or retired, we all have this capacity to create more happiness within our lives from within. So it's actually not one of the aspects, one of the strongest aspects to Tibetan Buddhism is it's really not dependent on external circumstances. It's we experience, and not even when they fluctuate. So yes, of course, it may be a little bit easier to enjoy our lives if everything is flowing really well. If we have very few problems arise, that everything is very stress-free and calm in our world, and we're easily able to achieve the goals that we want to. But this is not the determinant factor in our happiness or unhappiness. So these periods of happiness are most likely going to be relatively short-lived, and these conditions are unlikely to exist through every part and every time of our lives. And as a whole world, in fact, we've just experienced that through the whole COVID era, that an external condition occurred that impacted every single person on the planet. So in fact, we all have challenges. It's been shown by the fact, I mean, most of us have not experienced anything global like that, but we just have now. So we haven't lived through world wars, we haven't lived through famines, or we haven't lived through the Great Depression, which other eras did, but we now can say that in our lifetimes we have experienced some challenge, which, you know, so where does this path come from? The path to enlightenment originally emanates from the pure Buddhist teachings, or the pure Buddhist teachings of the great Indian sage Atisha. In a small volume called, these are the specific teaching, they all come from Shakyamuni 2,600 years ago, but the way it's presented comes from this very famous teacher by the name of Atisha. In a very small volume, I think it's only 6 pages long, called The Lamp for the Path to Enlightenment. And he wrote that he was at one point an abbot in India, in the Loden monastery, and he was invited to Tibet because at that time the teachings were very spread out and dissipated, so they had wanted somebody to come from the more pure teachings of the Loden monastery and to help resolve that. So he went to teach in Tibet, and at that time he wrote The Lamp for the Path to Enlightenment. But in the years following, so how it ended up being coming from this kind of tiny volume of 6 pages to being this very, very comprehensive teaching, was another extraordinary meditator and teacher was Geshe, who lived around 650 years ago. So these are very ancient teachings, and he wrote an extensive explanation of the Lamp for the Path to Enlightenment. And he wrote it in 3 volumes. He wrote it in an introduction volume, in a medium volume, and he wrote it in this extensive reference volume. So our founder, Geshe Acharya Thubten Loden, he then followed this tradition and presented the Path series in 3 volumes written in English. So that's actually quite a major moment. So we're working from the extensive version, but we can have some reliance that this is a a very sound teaching book. In fact, in the last year or so, or last year and 18 months or so, there was some extraordinary commemorations and celebrations of Geshe Tsongkhapa's life. So he's recognised as being, along with the teacher, as being a very, very great teacher over many, many hundreds of years. And there were monasteries and centres right throughout the world that were celebrating and marking that occasion. So it's a very solid and sound teaching. So the Path volumes all explain that our happiness is based on our underlying approach, how we see the world, our motivations, our responses to circumstances that arise, our care for ourselves and our care for others. So in other words, our happiness is 100% dependent on in our own hands. It's actually in our own hands. It's not the circumstances that we're going through. We might be having like calamity after calamity, but if we bring ourselves to a sound and stable place, then we'll be really well equipped to deal with that. So it is a result of a strong and steady, so this happiness is in fact the result of a strong and steady and compassionate, wise, gentle, thoughtful, focused, generous, and as Shakyamuni Buddha encapsulated, an enlightened approach. So when we talk about more happiness and less suffering, this is a personal view. And the word happiness, can have lots of connotations. So this is a personal view, but I don't see it as that kind of gleeful kind of happiness and that delight when we see, a fantastic, delicious chocolate mud cake. It's not that kind of happiness. And we see a movie that we find particularly wonderful. It's not that kind of happiness. So it's more the happiness that comes from an inner stability and inner core, and this ability to remain steady and to help ourselves and others regardless of what is going on around us. And the ability to make, decisions, really sound decisions. And it's also about developing a really, warm-hearted and compassionate approach to the world. So His Holiness the Dalai Lama, for example, has said, no one wants problems, and although we are at peace with each other here, elsewhere right now people are afflicted with all kinds of trouble, including violence in the name of religion. Much better than that is to live in peace with your neighbours. So that's why, as a human being, I'm committed to promoting compassion as the true source of happiness. So during COVID, for example, going back to COVID for a minute, the happy person will be thinking, what are people experiencing at this time? How can I best help in this situation for myself and for others around me, and not getting overwhelmed, not getting lonely or distracted by the endless hullabaloo in the media that's coming at you 24/7. Staying steady, appreciating that life has its ups and downs. Things will eventually change. No pandemic to date has lasted forever, and contributing in the best way that we can. So I'll use like a local Victorian example. So if we look at who became very popular in the pandemic era, and Professor Brett Sutton. Now, I'm not saying that he is a Buddha. I have no idea or know anything about him in his personal or in his other non-professional aspects of his life. But even on the worst days in the middle of the pandemic, he seemed to calmly gather the data every day, worked, I'd imagine, extremely long hours with his colleagues on an analysis, and then made presentations to an often hostile media who were quite, aggressive, and we were many of us were watching that, and very challenging media briefings. And it was a really impressive effort, which I think was quite widely acknowledged. I haven't heard many people disagree with that. And doubtless that kind of effort brought a stability or of a deep awareness that he had done his best, and he had brought all his capacities to bear in that situation, in that very challenging situation professionally. So the community responded with great respect to his work. So we can't all be Brett Sutton at present, obviously, but we can look at the implications of that example. So this is the kind of happiness that we are aiming to achieve. The ability to be calmer, more focused, confident, thoughtful, useful to himself and to others, to his own career, but also to the wider community. Very peaceful, very compassionate, kind, and undisturbed by the unprecedented events that the world was facing, undisturbed by the hostility that he was facing every single day as he had to front up to the media and explain the myriad of changes that were happening to us here in Victoria, in particular when we had a really quite a dangerous outbreak. In fact, somebody said to me yesterday that we're a bit of a benchmark in Victoria. We've done better than most other places in the world at actually containing an outbreak like that. So we're incredibly lucky. So how we usually react. So in general, not always, when things go wrong, we can often look outside ourselves and look for someone, something or someone else to blame, an excuse, a reason why something is occurring in our lives. So it's a pandemic, or it's the weather, or it's the government, or it's our family, it's our friends, our boss, the stock market, the housing market, too much pressure, loneliness, the street we live in, so many different aspects that we have to encounter and the hurdles that we have to address throughout our lives. That doesn't mean to say that those situations aren't happening and are not difficult to navigate. They are. They're often difficult to navigate, no question. We have to really concentrate. But how we approach them is the essence of our happiness. And it can be all emotion and stress and drama and worry and anxiety, or it can be a quiet, methodical way of working through those issues. So how can the path to enlightenment help with all of that? So the basis of this course, this incredible book, The Graduated Path to Enlightenment, can help transform us, can help bring about the transformations that we need so that we become much better equipped to also remain calm and focused and happy through any storm, through any situation, any circumstance that comes our way. So this is the real essence of what happiness is about, is this stability, this balance, this peace and this harmony. So what this book does is take us on a special transformational journey from where we are right now to other states of mind. So we start where we are. I think that's the teacher Pema Chodron has written a book saying start where we are, but that's pretty much it. We start where we are and we can move to find and make a better version of ourselves through this book. So in its ultimate form, that place is called enlightenment or being fully awakened. So the Buddha discovered this and he achieved it, and other great meditators have also achieved this state. So through this course, we can learn to contemplate our own mind and ask questions like, is our mind inherent? What is the mind? What are its qualities? Is it fixed or is it changing? The potential for great internal discovery is in this book, and how we realise our own fullest potential within this life, and that we become the best version of ourselves that we can possibly become, and at the same time gain more ease. So enlightenment is described by Geshe Loden as merely a change of perspective. So it's actually just shifting our mind to see the world differently than we see it now, and experiencing the world differently than we experience it now. So it's nothing more dramatic than a shift of perspective. Now that's easier said than done. It's not. We operate in a way in which our habits have been fairly well ingrained, but we have a method here. So the world that we live in really cries out for more and more people who are well advanced or enlightened and have an enlightened approach, like a Buddha or a Bodhisattva. A Bodhisattva is like a saint. So this remarkable change of perspective is described in detail in the pages of the Path to Enlightenment in Tibetan Buddhism. And it's based on the original teachings of Shakyamuni Buddha, amazingly around 2,600 years ago. So it provides a comprehensive guide to Buddhist thought, focusing on very practical needs, practical step-by-step needs of the journey that we can take if we choose to take it. It's a truly marvellous reference book. So it's got, a summary of all the verses in the back. It's got a great index. It's got an outline, which some people have ventured to actually learn because that gives you the overview. So it's a terrific reference book, but it's also a lot more than that. So the teachings of the Buddha offer a living philosophy that's a key to both an academic analysis, provides an academic analysis of how we approach our lives as human beings and beyond, but also a formula or a series of formulas for experiential transformation of our whole existence. And that's a big statement. So how's that? An experiential transformation of our whole existence. Not that we lose our personality, because that's not what it's saying at all, because, the Buddhas and the great Bodhisattvas, they all had personality. It's not asking us to become another person. It's about enriching who we are so that we have a better experience of the world, and we're also in a place that is better equipped to help ourselves and to help others consequently. So the Buddha himself, as exemplified by the statue behind me, said his words were the main aspect of his deeds to help others. And the same with Geshe Loden. He said that this book was his representative after his passing. So we have a representative of this great teacher who we were fortunate enough to have here. And he said the main purpose being to help everyone experience less suffering and have more happiness. It's very noble to live deeper and fuller lives, to in turn have the ability to benefit others more, and definitely more than they could have before. So if we take this journey, then we have the opportunity to definitely help others more than we could have before. So this book is a compendium of the words of the Buddha from 2,600 years ago that have been passed down all of those 2,600 years in a lineage system from teacher to student, teacher to student, teacher to student, great lineage of great teachers that have retained and passed one to the other this vital, relevant living tradition of mental and spiritual development. So the concepts that are actually presented in this book are the same concepts that the Buddha discovered and then was able to reach his full potential. So they're exactly the same as what he discovered as he sat in the forest and meditated for all those years and then set out to teaching others. So so that enabled Prince Siddhartha to become an enlightened being, but the concepts also presented in this book have enabled other royalty and ordinary people like you and me, traders, cleaners, lawyers, teachers, accountants, nurses, people from many, many different backgrounds have benefited many different lives to change their lives beyond recognition from their own starting point. And some have gone on to become enlightened. So what they've done is that they've learned to recognise and then to shed all of their negative attitudes and behaviours. So that's the first thing that they've done, is that they've seen for the first time. They say in this book, they've seen in the Dharma mirror. So we liken it to a mirror and we see, that's not that helpful. I don't think I've really been helping myself with that attitude and approach. So we might leave behind negative minds like anger and pride and jealousy and anxiety and depression self-limitation, limiting ourselves, sadness and miserliness, and hundreds and thousands, literally hundreds and thousands of negative approaches to the world, and we leave them behind by following this recipe. So what they've done then is that they've achieved more peace. On the other side, they've achieved more peace, and they've achieved more confidence and wisdom and compassion and love and calm and truly wonderful qualities that naturally would make them feel a whole lot better about the world and a whole lot better about themselves and a whole lot better to, have an expression of love and kindness and warmth and good-heartedness, as you see exemplified by somebody like His Holiness the Dalai Lama, to reach that kind of state. And then others, have gone on, and some have gone on to reach a full enlightenment, a fully enlightened state. So to achieve this transformation requires tools. So that's what is explained. Virtually every page in this book has got a reference that is really worth unpacking. So there are many, many tools explained in here. So it is like a program, a comprehensive system, like an almost ultimate spiritual development program. So there's many tools that the Buddha taught and the great masters taught to help us to do that, to take on this training program. So there's a strong thread through the book, for example, of encouragement, of encouraging us to benefit ourselves and others. And then, of course, on the other side of that is a strong thread of warning us what might happen if we don't take on that challenge, or we don't take up such a course. So, in short, a carrot and stick approach is used throughout, it's threaded right throughout the book. And it's just the same as like if you have a physical trainer, if you decide to take on a physical trainer, then the physical trainer will say, well, if you take on an exercise program and you do, 100 push-ups, or you get on the treadmill, or you do your weights, then your body is going to naturally get stronger and fitter, and you're going to be, feeling a lot better in your physical health. And then they might say, but if you don't do that, well, you're just going to become like, have the couch potato approach to life, then you're not going to have a very healthy life. And if you love your burgers and that, it's going to get even worse. So it's kind of, that carrot and stick approach is kind of threaded through this book in terms of our spiritual development as a physical trainer. So the second tool, I would say, is frequent reminders. So these are, similar to the carrot and stick. They're presented in many different ways. There's lots of different ways to explain the advantages of this, and why that's really useful is because we then can do the meditations. So we're not just, as I said, like it's academic, but it's also transformational, because when you do the meditations, you kind of work through the logic of those advantages and disadvantages, and if you accept the logic, then it becomes like you kind of embrace it. So you embrace the advantages and the disadvantages, and that's part of the transformational process that actually occurs, is that you actually training your mind to see that this is a really useful thing to do. Or, you're looking and you're saying, well, no, that's not for me. So that's fair enough too. So the more clearly that we see the advantages and the more clearly we see the disadvantages, we'll be oriented to adopting them and rejecting them respectively. So then another really important is, I think I mentioned earlier, is having a really good motivation, for taking on as a core aspect of these teachings. And it's like an engine, a motivation is like an engine, because it will help us to, if we have a really busy life, we might decide, okay, I'm really interested in these teachings and I can see how they're going to benefit me, and I can see how they're going to benefit the wider community. So that becomes like an engine to get us out of bed 10 minutes earlier in the morning, so that we can actually, doesn't matter if we have a busy life, that's fine, there's nothing wrong with that, that's good. But we need to find that little bit of time to, do our meditation or to read a couple of pages of the Path to Enlightenment, and that will help us to do, the motivation will help us to do that. And we'll learn a lot about motivation as we travel this path. So the path also explores, this path book also explores some Buddhist concepts such as the sufferings of different realms. And these sound a little bit strange at first when you first encounter them, such as hungry ghosts and hell beings. And that can sound, a little bit different. But they can actually be seen in the experiences of some humans. So if we kind of look at it in those terms, and we think about the lives of some human beings, somebody who is living through a war, for example, and if you'd been living in Syria for the last 12 years, I think it is, that they've been in terrible, terrible situation, strife, then that is kind of the mind that we're talking about is already a fairly hellish place. Or if you're living in extreme poverty and you can't get enough food or drink, that is also a fairly hellish place. So, and not much relief from the pain and suffering. And then on the other hand, you would be talking about the hungry ghost mind. That's a mind that has a lot of grasping and attachment. So you would look at an example in our life. You might think of a person who had a lot of money, but they were never happy. So it doesn't matter what they had. They might, have a new manicure every week. They might have, Botox treatment. They might have, a new house every second year, big holidays, lots of big boats, lots of everything that you can possibly imagine, wonderful food, but they're never happy. They're not happy with that. So that would be kind of a hungry ghost. Not being able to see the value and the benefits of all that they've got and still be really, really unhappy. That would be a kind of a hungry ghost or a heavily attached mind. So while they sound a little bit unusual, there are, comparisons in the world that we've got to explain those kind of minds. Then another tool that is used is the concept of cause and effect of karma. So there'll be quite a bit more explanation as we go on with this course, but this explains how positive and negative minds and the potential to later experience such realms or modes of existence are strongly linked. So it's not quite the same as other belief systems. In other belief systems, sometimes talk about punishment for evil deeds and rewards for being a good person. And that's not to put that down in any way. I have great respect for other belief systems. But what this does, what the explanation of karma does, is to explain in a logical system in which certain behaviours will result in either more ease and contentment, clarity and the ability to benefit others, and some behaviours will naturally lead to more anguish and sadness and depression, and habits that continue to bring really poor results. So what the path does is explain all of that in a lot of detail and gives us meditations to help us to shift those kind of minds and refocus and recalibrate. So the path also explains that how positive and negative imprints can then be carried into future lives. So the Buddhist belief in reincarnation and future lives is explained logically, and how what we do now will have an impact on what happens to us in the future. So that's also explained in a lot of detail. So this is a very rich and profound book, and virtually every page studied well can be incorporated into our thinking and can be transformational. So there's something like 800 pages in the book, so there's a lot of opportunities for us to explore areas of interest. So it's a book to be studied, it's a book to be pondered, it's a book to be enjoyed and treated with respect. We won't grasp everything at the first reading. There's, little chance of that unless you've encountered it many, many other lives. But each time we read a different section, we have a new layer of understanding. A new layer of understanding will come to us. And sometimes, actually, when you read the book, you can think that I don't know that I've actually read that page before, because you come to it with a different mind and a different mindset than the mind that you had before. So you may have been studying Buddhism for a period, or been studying, and trying to do some meditations, and your mind has already had some level of transformation. So you come to this book and this page or this chapter, and you see it entirely differently. So there's layers and layers of understanding. And so I've heard it said that the process of the graduated path is compared to peeling away the layers of an onion. So there's many, many fine layers on an onion. So really at the moment, our mind is quite smudgy, like a smudgy mirror. We could say it's like a smudgy mirror. And we're not able to see or understand our world clearly through this fog, through the smudgy mirror. But if we apply ourselves, then gradually the clarity and the knowing will clear, and we'll see things much better, and we'll have these many kind of aha moments where we understand what is being said a lot better, and have these kind of moments of truth, which can be found to be highly beneficial. So some of the topics within this book are much more challenging than other topics within the book. So we don't have to accept these arguments that are put in the book. Actually, we don't have to accept anything that is in this book. So there is nobody here in Buddhist practice or in Tibetan Buddhism or in any Buddhism I know that's telling us that we have to believe anything. So each reading of this book will produce an improvement to our mind, and listening and thinking and meditating is the key to that. So the reading or listening to the Dharma will stimulate our thinking. So we'll begin to contemplate. So if you've heard something today, or you decide to read a chapter, that will then stimulate us to think about it, and whether we have questions about it, whether we think it doesn't make any sense at all, and then we can clarify the correct objects of meditation. It's really up to us also where we want to start in this book. So, and we can test the logic of the analyses for ourselves and pull it apart and say, no, well, that makes sense to me, and well, that doesn't make sense to me. And we can put some subjects just to one side, which is certainly what I did when I first became involved. There were some subjects that were just a little bit too much for me. So as we read or listen and reflect on what we've learned, we can find over time that we do become more relaxed, because we're beginning to shed some of our preconceptions and some of our attitudes and emotions, and we can come to a place of more natural ease. And we'll also begin to avoid some of the rabbit holes of life. So there's many ways that we can get caught up in life, and with a clear focus, our life become a whole lot more simple and a whole lot more meaningful. And as holiness is quoted as saying, "Be happy, be useful." So studying this book will help us to work through that process of what we consider to be beneficial, and clarify what we think is helpful, and the thought and actions that we want to concentrate on ourselves to develop our own mind, and providing the basis for developing more wisdom. And we will begin to see our activities through a somewhat different lens, through that lens of maximum benefit. Is this beneficial for myself? Is this beneficial for others? Rather than the more reactive leaping from one activity to another. So this provides such a clear framework for a new way to approach living. So many people do adopt a spiritual path, but they don't have such a clear framework. So they might do, they might do an occasional retreat here and a few mantras there, or have a great interest in taking up Tantra, or, they might buy some mala beads and do a little bit, but when problems arise, as they inevitably do at various points in our lives, then they don't necessarily have a correct framework or a method to find methods to overcome them. So that there's actually, for every problem there is a method in here to overcome those problems. So if we become familiar with the path to enlightenment, that will help us to have a good understanding of which of the methods, when we apply them and do the work, because it does require us to actually take on the work, it will provide that opportunity to find the right method and apply it. So it's like building a strong, stable house. It's like building a house that's got a really strong foundation. And so for our Buddhist path, this path to enlightenment will provide that foundation. So we sometimes read and learn about practitioners who've taken really radical steps. They become incredibly enthused. They, encounter the Dharma, and they suddenly become incredibly enthused about what the little they've learned and maybe want to follow. So, for example, an example of that is some great yogis have gone to the mountains, and they've been at that point in their development. They've been ready to go to the mountains and have long meditation retreats. So other people might see them and think, oh, that's a good idea. I've just, discovered this Dharma. I've discovered this Buddhist teachings. I think I should go and do that too. But it may not be the right course for them, within the context of their own lives. And very, very few people are actually at that stage yet, are ready to go and, give everything away and live like a great yogi like Milarepa. There was a great yogi called Milarepa who had done a lot of training with his teacher, and his teacher guided him that way to go and do that. So Geshe used to tell us a story really frequently about a Tibetan businessman who had become incredibly interested in doing a long retreat on calm abiding. And he was advised by his teacher that wasn't such a good idea. He wasn't ready for that. But he said, no, I'm going. I'm definitely going. I'm going to have a fantastic time. So he sold his business. He sold his house. He sold everything. And he went up the mountain and found a cave and started meditating in the cave. And after I think a week or two, he came down the mountain and he said, that's rubbish. That method is complete rubbish. I don't believe in that method. So he blamed the method. He'd been advised not to do it, and he had nothing left. So that was a bit unfortunate for that poor man. So that's why it's really important to have a good foundation to our Buddhist studies, like to take a method that is, tested and true and reliable, and that's up to us to check that I'm not just sitting here saying a whole lot of rubbish, and so you check that for yourself. And then to build your practice slowly based on a really good foundation. So we don't actually need to hide in a mountain to do that. So there was another story of a famous king a long time ago who went to his teacher. He had a teacher and he really liked the Buddhist path and wanted to learn the Buddhist path. And he said to his teacher, does this mean that I need to stop being the king? And the teacher said, no, definitely not. You stay being the king. This is a good thing for you to do. But it's not really about, you can actually interweave and apply all of the teachings into how you conduct yourself. So if you were the king and you were going to use that opportunity to amass great riches and great wealth and to have control over others and to be, boss everyone around and be really powerful, that's not good motivation. But a great king has the opportunity, or a king has the opportunity to be really kind, to be really caring, to make sure that everybody has everything they need, to have really good motivation for their day-to-day activities throughout the day. And so this king took that advice, and he then eventually himself became enlightened because he applied what the teacher had said to him. So the same applies to us. You know, we can live the lives that we have ended up with, whatever our working situation is, whatever our marriage situation is, or our single life, and we can interweave the Dharma throughout our whole day and still have the opportunity to achieve an enlightened state or to become more aware and more developed. So an example for us would be going to work. So we could go to work to, you know, make lots of money, to get lots of new clothes, to buy lots of goods, to have a great time, or we can go to work to make ourselves physically, you know, to make sure that we are in a good, healthy state, that we're strong, physically strong, that we have enough resources to contribute our skills. We can contribute our skills in our workplace and have a good motivation for that, about helping others and helping ourselves. And we can be like the king in our own way within our own lives and still become enlightened. There is no reason why we can't become enlightened by living as a good person and living a good Dharma life and interweaving the learnings of the Dharma practice into our lives. So if the same as if the king had just ruled for, you know, power and riches, then he would not have been able to become enlightened, but he did for very good purpose, and we can do the same within the context of where we're up to now. So some of the topics in the Path to Enlightenment are quite challenging. So when we look at things like the 8 qualities of the 3 jewels, the 12 dependent links of arising, and special insight into the nature of reality, which some people absolutely love studying and others find really difficult. Some of these we can choose to set aside to a bit later. We don't have to start at the beginning. So we can start this book at the beginning, and this course will go my 6 weeks, and then Pam after me, and then Martin after Pam. We'll go through the course step by step, but in our own studies we don't have to do the same. We can go through it step by step, or we can choose subjects that appeal to us, or we can choose topics that we need. So for example, if we've got, you know, if we need more patience, if we have a bit of a trouble with anger, we might choose to study the negativity of anger and understand all the disadvantages of anger, and then to study patience, the perfection of patience, because that will give us some immediate relief from the negativity that is causing us the most grief in our lives. So we might do it that way. So another suggestion that is in the book itself that says that for newer students, is to begin with chapter 1 about the Dharma, then we can jump to the second last chapter in part 2 on how to meditate, and then continue progressively through the other parts. The book is in 3 parts, and the third part is quite is easier to follow. Some parts of it, like love and compassion and bodhicitta, are quite enjoyable topics, and the 6 perfections are all very enjoyable topics. Some of the earlier topics are a little bit harder to get to the essence of, so that's another way that you can potentially study this book. So as I said, we will go progressively through the book. This is an overview course in March and April. Some of the topics we will explore include what is Dharma and how it can help our mind. Some of the Buddha's inspiring stories. Some of Buddhism's very inspiring stories. Skills that we need for the transformation of our mind. We'll go through those, and tools and qualities. We've touched on some of the tools. But we'll go in a little bit more depth into some of the tools and qualities to inspire our journey, our spiritual journey. So Pam will go a little bit deeper on the aspects of the path in May and June, and she'll include a detailed explanation of how to meditate, because there's lots of aspects to meditation. And Martin Horan will cover the final 2 terms of 2021, and he'll be investigating such topics as causes of suffering and karma. So in the time that we've got left, we're going to do a little bit more meditation. So meditation is the other really core tool of Buddhism, and as we mentioned before, there is stabilizing meditation. What we did earlier is a stabilizing meditation that's used to quieten the mind, and then there is analytical meditation, which is used to explore first of all Buddhist concepts such as karma and the 12 links and emptiness, but also the qualities of the mind that we want to cultivate: patience, generosity, loving kindness and compassion. There's so many different meditations, analytical meditations. Sorry. So visualization can be incorporated into either stabilization meditation and analytical meditation. Sorry. So we're going to now do a little bit more meditation, and we'll begin with another stabilizing meditation, and then we'll visualize the removal of our negativities and the integration of positive qualities such as love. So we'll do that in the remaining minutes. So if you just first get yourself nice and comfortable. Rest our hands in a lap, for anyone who doesn't know. Nice straight back, shoulders relaxed, head slightly forward. Many of the postures, elbows slightly away from the torso, many of these postures are to help us prevent us becoming sleepy. So we'll return to concentrating on the sensation of the breath. If your preferred place is up and down the nostrils, then focus on that, the in and the out, or the rising and falling of the diaphragm or the upper chest. So we just begin by withdrawing our focus and clearly identifying the breath. And then relaxing into the meditation, feeling strained by it, enjoying the moment, the time out, just focusing on the movement of the breath, the quiet that brings. Like the still lake. Try maintaining concentration on the breath for a cycle of at least 10 breaths without distraction. If it's not possible, no problem. Just take ourselves back to the beginning again. So now we're going to change our object of concentration. We're just going to focus on the out-breath. And as we focus on the out-breath, going to release all of our problems, all of our negativities, any unhappiness that we have, the anxiety or tension, going to let it go in the form of either black light or black smoke, whichever you prefer. And then the black smoke, black light will just completely dissolve. And along with it, all of your negativities, all of your problems, your worries or concerns, your suffering you might be experiencing. Just focused on the out-breath. Any sickness, causes of sickness, causes of a short life, worries, anxiety, anger, agitation, just evaporate on the out-breath in the form of the black smoke or black light. Step by step, we become lighter. So we release any sources of suffering. Release any feelings of limitation. Any resentment, any hurt, any times that we haven't met our own or other people's expectations. All of these dissolve in the form of black light or black smoke as we breathe out. We become lighter and lighter. So we release all these negativities, the suffering. Then next we change our focus and we focus on the in-breath. And we imagine that each time we breathe in beautiful, brilliant white light. This beautiful, brilliant white light appears as such, but it's actually all good qualities, all happiness and joy. It's good health and wonderful states of mind such as patience, generosity, compassion, love, and wisdom, knowing the truth of reality. Beautiful white light filling our body, filling our mind, and we feel lighter. Completely filled with this beautiful white light. We now imagine sending the white light to those that we love, our friends and our family, and the beautiful white light touching them, bringing them happiness and joy and peace and good health and everything they need. And then the beautiful white light extends even further to all the people that we don't know. 7.6 billion people across our planet. Wishing them good health, good conditions, everything they need, happiness, joy, love, peace, harmony, respect, good relationships, success in all their endeavours, a long life, plenty of food and good conditions. And then we wish the same for all other living beings, whether animals or insects or birds, marine life. So many living beings. We just wish them freedom from fear, freedom from cold and hunger, plenty of food, plenty of good conditions. We maintain this wish for the happiness for ourselves and all living beings for as long as we can. The beautiful white light touches all living beings. Then, in recognition of the effort of this meditation and this class, we can dedicate any positive energy that we have accumulated towards more happiness in our life, more good conditions, better health, and also happiness and good conditions for the people that we love and know, and also for all living beings. So we'll conclude with two prayers. The final prayer of the graduated path. This is a prayer composed by Tsongkhapa, who we talked about before. It's on page 31 or on the screen. By the two collections vast as space, amassed with effort for a long time, may I become a chief of conquerors, a guide for all beings whose mind's eye is blinded by ignorance. Also in all lives, while not yet come to that, may Manjushri favour me with his compassion, finding the supreme path, complete with all stages of the teachings. May I please the conquerors by practicing well, by my precise understanding of the essential points of the path, with skillful means drawn along by strong compassion, and by dispelling the mental darkness of beings, may I uphold the conqueror's teaching for a long time. Where the supreme precious teaching has not spread, also where it has spread but become degenerate, with a mind deeply moved by great compassion, may I make clear this treasure of benefit and bliss, the stages of the path excellently established by the marvellous deeds of the conquerors and their sons. Give glory to the minds of those aspiring for liberation. May the conqueror's deeds be long preserved. May all humans and non-humans who remove the obstructions and establish conditions favourable to cultivating the excellent path never be parted for all of their lifetimes from the purest of paths which the Buddhas have praised. When someone makes effort to practice properly the 10 points of conduct of the Supreme Vehicle, may he always be assisted by the mighty protectors, and may oceans of good fortune spread out, reaching all. And then we turn to page 34 for the general dedication, which we'll do in Tibetan and then English. Yawari Chinbokun Zonam Yeji Zojin Zonam Yeji Lenyongwe Dhampa Kuni Topajo. By this virtue may all beings complete the collections of wisdom and merit, and attain the two holy bodies arisen from wisdom and merit. Changju Zem Jorin Moje Maji Param Chingaji Ripanyamba Me Pai Go the precious superior mind of enlightenment be generated in those who have not yet generated it, and not decrease in those who have developed it, but increase continuously. So, if you have any questions, I think we might have gone a bit over time, my apologies, so we might postpone those. For those of us who are having a cup of tea, if you want to join us, then we can ask then. Perhaps we can we record any of the questions? Has there been any other questions, Manakam?
There's no questions.
No questions. Okay, thank you. So next week we'll focus on the topic of why the Dharma, the teachings of the Buddhas, can help our mind, and what might be happening in my mind at present, and how will these teachings really do something about that. So that's what we'll look at next week. And you're very welcome to join us for afternoon tea or a cup of tea if you like. And I'd like to also say a big thank you to Manakam, who has been so amazing since the beginning of the COVID era, helping to get our teachings online. So thank you. Thank you very much for coming. Thank you.